Good morning, family, and welcome to part 19 of how the Sacramento County Sheriffs would come and lock me out of the home I've lived in for the past 23 years and how I got here. I'm going to start off by saying, full transparency, for those that don't have the time or are a bit impatient, today is going to be a day of sharing, and it's going to be a bit of a long one. So if you don't have the time or have other obligations, please check out my YouTube channel or some of the other content that I've written, articles on LinkedIn, to get updates. But I have a lot to share. And so I want to start off by saying I was able to meet with an attorney, and I spoke with the attorney at length out of Costa Mesa, and we talked about the merits of my case and what it looked like. I even spoke with her about the current unlawful detainer case and how that piece went, and how the judge denied my ability to appear remotely, and then once my motions were denied to appear remotely twice, the judge used that information against me in the next court hearing that I was allowed to attend remotely. The attorney, immediately said, "Well, do you know who the judges do allow to attend remotely?" And I was pretty stunned and I assumed she was implying herself, or the attorney group that she was representing. And that was one of the first statements I found to be pretty shocking, because I did explain to the judge in each of the motions that I filed that I don't have money, I don't have a car, and I need to be able to appear remotely. So for the judge to take away my access to due process was pretty surprising to me. And like I said in my previous videos, poverty shouldn't prevent you from participating, even if you're showing that you are able to and willing to participate. And so, like I said, that started off, kind of left a bitter taste in my mouth to begin with, as we kind of continued to discuss the merits of my case. And as we talked about it, she shared, it's pretty much impossible for you to get your home back at this point. You only have so much time to get your home back before, it's pretty much a done deal. And unless you can prove that the lender acted in bad faith. And as I shared with her, I absolutely can prove the lender acted in bad faith. Before the home went into foreclosure, I was emailing the lender. Even after it was sold, I was still contacting the lender. I contacted the lender right after it was sold and still continued to try and get them to understand, hey, this was done in error. The lender, and I spoke with a particular representative, Daedry 09374 is the operator number, and once I spoke with Daedry shared with me, hey, they're researching it right now. Give them until January 9th to conclude their research. And I said, oh, okay. And I honestly thought that they were doing their due diligence and looking into how they messed up and would correct it. The attorney shared with me that they were just buying time for me not to contest the sale of my property. Now, how am I to know that the lender is acting in bad faith? I didn't realize that. And like I said, had I known that they were just stalling, I would have filed motions sooner to be able to get my property back. And when the attorney shared that with me, I was pretty shocked, but she said you would have to subpoena phone records and things like that. And I said, okay, understood. And thought that would be something that as an attorney they'd be able to take on and do. But as we continued to talk, and Mara, she continued to back away from that, and it's impossible at this point. And the language turned to, it's impossible at this point for you to get your home back. It's impossible. Even though she had just said if the lender acted in bad faith. So it turned to that. And then once we kind of continued talking, I wanted to know, okay, so what's this going to cost me? And what is this looking like for me? She goes, well, what we can do is we can get you back your surplus funds. And what surplus funds means is the difference between what I owed on my loan and the difference between what the house sold is mine. And so those are called surplus funds. And the lender or the attorney said that she can get those back for me. Well, if they're already mine, they should already be turned over to me. So it's not like you have to pursue that. They're already mine. And she stated it would cost me 33% of the amount for me to get that money back to me. I can, I felt that as though I could pursue that, especially if I'm not going to get the home back, which is really my driving force. And like I said, once she mentioned the 33% of the surplus funds, I'm not going to get my home back. I think my brain pretty much shut off at that point, because it sounded as if the attorney had already predetermined that how she was going to pursue my case. And it sounded as if the attorney was not going to pursue the case as rigorously as I would to get my home back because the lender acted in bad faith. And so I thanked her for her time and told her I'd take some time to think about it, because I never want to rush to a decision. And so I took some time. I thought about it. I needed some time to process the information that she had shared and review just all the information that we had talked about before I made a decision. But once I kind of processed everything, and it kept replaying in my head that how she was going to pursue the case, that it was impossible for me to get my home back, I thanked her for her time and thought, I'm the best person to pursue this case and how I want it to how the outcome that I want. And so she thanked me for my confidence, and so we moved on from there. So I was able to speak with an attorney, wanted to share that with you all, and it kind of led me to a few other decisions that I kind of thought through yesterday as well. And so I'll share that with you in an upcoming part, but that conversation with the attorney kind of led me to kind of rethink, who am I fighting for and how am I fighting?